of the analogies I always make about brokers is that it's like being handed a massive wine list. You know, there's so many options. Sometimes you need a kind of lending sommelier, and that's what a broker is in many ways, in a specialist, to kind of give you the guidance as to where, you know, what the right option is. Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. This is episode 100. Yes, I can't believe we've made it this far, but we have. So thank you for all of your support over the past couple of years as we've been going through the podcast. I am delighted to welcome directors of Broker Club, Jordan McBriar and Dimitri Zaprzala. Welcome, guys.
Michael, hello.
Good to have you here. Welcome. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Both of you past guests. Dimitri, not long ago, Avon colleague as well. So, yeah.
Nice to see you.
How's life on the dark side?
Good. That's a very common question I get asked, actually. It's not that dark,
No,
I would say.
No.
I think there's a bit of a myth. But it's good fun. Thank you very much. Yes.
Oh, no, it's always good to see you both. Jordan, it feels like it's been forever since I last saw you. But
Probably has. It's been far too long.
But yeah, absolute pleasure to have you both here. So, Broker Club, we're just going to just dive straight in.
What is it?
What is it?
Go on,
What is it?
Jordan.
What's the score? What's it all about?
It's a combination of things, really. But I think in its simplistic form, we sat down one day, literally around a table, as Dimitri's joined us at AFIG, and we sat on a table and said, look, the one thing that we were always very good at, and one thing that Dimitri was a big advocate for, was like boots on the ground broking, building relationships, going seeing sites, as you know we've done throughout the course of the kind of brokerage. And we were sat there and said, well, hang on, if the two of us sat here in Surrey and Harry sat in Hampshire, therefore you covered two counties, well, why can't we do it nationwide? Why can't we have a brokerage and a member in every county in the country? So quick Google or ChatGPT and find out there's 48 counties across England and Wales. And we just said, well, look, it's a hard and fast boundary which we can police, we can maintain it, we can look into what people are doing and their achievements in that space. And we launched, and we basically launched with not too much information, because I think the beauty of what it is the club's designed about communication and collaboration. So we put it out there just as a test. It's Dimitri, Harry, and myself. I'd like to think we've got a relatively decent reputation in the market for different reasons. And the response was pretty overwhelming. I said, obviously non-egotistically, and I think we had two main fears. It would flop completely. We'd have no interest. I think the other part was that we think we'd get enough people, but it'd be very centric to certain parts, like London, Birmingham, Manchester. But to date, the application part's closed now, but we had 68 applicants, which actually covered 42 counties. So we're literally 6 counties short.
What are you missing?
The Midlands. The Midlands. You think, there's obviously some really
considerably better than you.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. But I think there's no getting away from that. We know there's some powerhouse brokerages in those parts of the world. So I think our model was basically designed for the inception was 1 or 2, 3 person bands. Who they're either restricted by means of how they can place business, or they're restricted to just buy geographically or whatnot. And then the thought was that bring them into a part of a club, a genuine club, and off the back of that, there's been a few accidental benefits that we didn't plan upon, which have come to us, which have been really, really interesting, which I'll obviously go into in a bit. And then I think actually the other part is that the overwhelming response has been they want to be part of something bigger, and all of a sudden we've gone from a business with 3, 4 deal writers to potentially over 50, purely in the specialist market. And it wasn't designed to become an animal with big stomping feet, but in theory that's what it could become. It could be something pretty special. We're having conversations with the BDLA and with FIBA, and we want to make sure this is done properly. So it's an all-round benefit. We can distribute more, brokers get more business, they can collectively collaborate on projects, and everyone has different skill sets. That's one thing we found, that a lot of the potential members have backgrounds in equity, or they have backgrounds in sales, and all of a sudden you've got a well-oiled machine from front to back where everyone can benefit off one another. And I think the lender response has been really good as well. Not just from an intrigue to see what it's going to be, but they've hopefully cottoned on like we have to say, well, in theory, if we're doing 50, 60 deals a year as a 2 or 3 man, business writer, how many should you do with 48, 50? And like I say, today is we launched just over a month ago. We're 25 of 68 calls into the next, like, don't really call it an interview, but the next process of getting to know who these people hopefully are going to be. And today they've been wholly really, really positive.
Yeah.
And what have been for the people who haven't been appropriate? What would be the reasons that they haven't fit why have they not been a good fit?
I'd say, well, the first thing I'd say, it's not designed for someone who wants to start a brokerage and use this as kind of their segue into the market. So there's been a couple where it's someone who's just starting out, and actually it's not designed for that. It's designed for established, existing, as Jordan said, typically 1 to 3 person brokerages. And actually we've been quite humbled by some of the names. Obviously we won't mention them, but some of the names that have shown an interest and had the first call with us and actually want to get involved has been it's been really good. Like names we would have worked with and heard of many times. So that's the first one. As I say, it's not designed for someone brand new. That's just not what we set it out to be. And then the second one, we tend to get quite a good feel for people, I think, quite quickly. We've been fortunate. I think probably 90% of the calls, either one or both, or Harry as well, we've known them. So you just get a sense of is it somebody, the sort of person that you can see yourself going into partnership with, and people who see it as the benefits really, rather than looking for there's not a huge amount of complication to it. It's purely benefits that come from it.
And to those people who are maybe a little bit removed from it, what is is it meant to be a kind of, is it meant to help with compliance, or is it meant to be more of a kind of somewhere more of like a referral club where you refer business to people who are maybe more suited to doing certain types of business?
Yeah, I'd say the best way to look at it is it's a free lead generation source which we create. And what we want is that the broker members and the part of the club, we want them to still have their input, and they'd get a deal through our generation, and they get a lead through us, and they create a deal. That's what the broker's good at doing. So there's kind of a few avenues of which they can benefit from that. So simply, say, lead is generated in their area. It's where the property's going to be, so you don't get that leakage into, my developer's in Berkshire.
So it's not where the client's based, it's where the asset is.
It's where the asset's based. And again, what we like to think is in the fullness of time, you may have one club member who's looked after, say, a prospective borrower 10, 15 times, and they might go over a border. And at that point, there may be a bit of a, push and shove between the two, and they can work together, best out of the asset, best out of the borrower. That's with the evolution of what it becomes. But the main thing is, I say, they get the generation, they create the deals themselves. And I think, again, this was an accidental benefit that we've now created, is that a lot of the lenders that we work with and have worked with for 12, 13 years, we're very fortunate that we're remunerated. I'd like to think because we're good at what we do, and a bit of presence, but the majority, if not all of the lenders who we consider our day-to-day panel, we're open, we're whole of market, but there's always so many things you can do for the the benefit of the client. But they've they've intimated that the benefits that we have, we can pass on to broker club members. So if you're a small one-person band up in the northeast and you're not used to dealing with Evermore or whoever it may be, but because we deal with you regularly, we have maybe a better point of contact, or we happen to speak to someone like yourself. They have the ability to go via Dimitri and myself and Harry and access that, whether it be better remuneration or just better service. And I think that's an accidental positive that's come out of it, really.
Yeah, so I guess the sort of relationship leverage that you or maybe another club member might have with a particular lender can benefit other club members with better outcomes. It's quite funny actually, because if you can remember back to our conversation, from with putting the funny glasses to one side. If you can remember that conversation, one of the things you brought up was collaboration between brokers.
Yeah,
and it's something that's always stuck with me. That's something that you're quite keen to do. And actually, when I raise it with other leaders in the brokerage or advisory space, they are less keen.
Oh, really?
About then, I wouldn't say it's unanimous, but I'd say there's a mixed level of appetite for collaboration between brokers. Some are really open to it and want to collaborate, and others are others are against it. But it's really interesting that you've always maintained that sort of desire and desire and willingness to collaborate with other brokers. So it's kind of good. This very much fits in line with that ethos, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are the big questions? When you have these initial calls, what are the questions that you've been like? What's the most common questions you've been asked?
How much does it cost? That's a common one. I think some people are expecting us to go through a pitch and then 15 minutes later drop you get all of this for the cost of this, but there is literally none. So that it's a zero cost club. That's what we're looking at. The other questions, does it restrict them in any way regarding where they can write business? No, it doesn't. So it's not designed for us to tell them where they need to put business or anything like that. So I think because of the type of person that we are tending to see, a lot of these people have been entrepreneurs, they've been self-employed for decades in some cases, certainly 10 years plus. Actually, one of the things they love about that is the fact they have their own control of their own destiny. It's their own business. So that the first question they might not ask it directly, but it's definitely getting to that point of, well, actually, if I were to join, do I give up some of the things that I look for every single day?
Yeah. So there's no restrictions on business. It's just their geographical restrictions are really just in terms of what they can do with the referrals. Yeah. The referrals that they get through the club, essentially.
Exactly that. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like in many ways a free hit for a lot of these guys.
Mm-hmm. It should be if it's used correctly.
How do you? I mean, in theory, right? There's more than 48 brokers in the country, right? If time passes, you're in brokerage as you are in sales, you're only as good as your last deal. How long does a broker have exclusive access to Broker Club? That particular patch, do they have to reapply over a certain period of time?
No, not at all. No, I think that it'll come down to performance. That's probably the other question that people ask you: what's the expectations of a club member? And I think the truth is, we're going into it a little bit blind. We will probably use the next 6 months to work out how many leads generated per county and see what the conversion rates are from actually making it a deal and not getting a deal done. I think it's we're going to be quite honest with people to say, look, if you don't get the best out of it, we're not either. So if you have 200 leads and you convert none, it's a conversation that has to be had. But I think if that person or brokerage is using it for what it should be, they're transacting more, we're therefore transacting more, then no, I think it can, they'll have the exclusivity as long as they want to have it and it works for both of us.
Okay.
We were tempted about, what should we set as a target and what's the minimum, but we just don't know. And I think the reality is, let's try it, and that will dictate what good looks like in terms of volumes and numbers and such. But I'd love to think it becomes a meaningful part of our members' businesses over the not too distant future as well.
Not at all.
I feel like it should happen quite quickly.
And in terms of the overall, as I suppose the quote unquote owners of Broker Club, for you guys, the business model is presumably you take if there's no membership fee, you're basically taking a spread of a cut of anything that you refer to these guys, right?
Yeah, it's a simple broker. It's the normal broker model, and this is why we've never massively expanded before, because it said kind of candidly, the better people who are still one person bands, they don't want to give away a proportion of the fees that they're generating. Yeah. It doesn't work, and the truth is, we have to therefore go out and hire them, and either they don't particularly want that, or we don't particularly want to have 50 brokers on POAE and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's a simple way to say, well, look, you've never had this lead, you've never had that case. We're just effectively another introducer, albeit we're an introducer within the market already. There's only so many hours in the day that we can do what we do, and like I say, it comes down to a quick equation of quantum.
Yeah. Are there inspirations that you've taken from the regulated sector or other industries that kind of gave you the idea? What was the brainchild behind it? Like where
Amazon.
No,
you laugh. Like we were literally sat
at
okay. We were sat at my dining room table, and I think that morning I'd ordered something on Amazon. It was one of those where it's gone from being Prime's not tomorrow, Prime's in 6 hours, and it was, well, hang on, if I'm based in Esher where I am, then a developer rings me in Cobham or rings me even if I was Guildford or Hazelmere, I can get there. in a few hours. I can be there. I can be on site. I can walk the site. I can talk to them. I can build that relationship. That was really it.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we do, or we hope to expect of club members, is to have that attitude. You're not a keyboard warrior, for want of a better term. You are getting out, you're seeing people. Because the big thing is, we've all been around this table long enough. The majority of the market problems is when things go wrong. Things go wrong. No one can conduct that. But we all know, as we work in the development space in particular, if you walk on a site, you can smell a problem and see a problem probably 2 or 3 months earlier than someone wants to actually admit. And that's before you're admitting it, let alone then going back to the lender's approval. Well, at that point, you're up the creek.
Yeah.
Aren't you?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, especially with a slightly higher interest rate environment that we're in now, we've seen it firsthand, right?
Yeah.
You used to be able to, let a problem fester for a little bit longer historically before it bit you in the arse. That's definitely not the case now, right? 3 months. 3 months is, especially in a slightly falling market, 3 months could be not 3% extra LTV. It's 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it definitely is something to think about. And do you foresee, first question, I have a few questions. First of all, do you think separating by county, are you going to maybe have to look at how you separate it? Because there's a strong argument certain locations you could split more aggressively. Maybe certain parts of rural Wales you could, with 2 towns in them, you might have slightly different viewpoint. But Yorkshire probably needs Yorkshire could probably justify a few more than one. But I guess also, are you looking at maybe over time having exclusive blender products or exclusive rates or whatever from that you can offer to club members?
Yes, we don't know what that looks like yet. But my immediate thought is that just on that county point, first and foremost, I think it could develop, but we're quite keen for it to be that point of difference to start with, that it is county by county, person by person. I think naturally those bigger counties that you mention, there's not necessarily as many transactions happening, but we will learn that as we go. In fact, it all started off with, I can remember the bullet point on one of our pages. I think it was Surrey bridging to discuss, and then that's how the county bit. So maybe we're slightly biased by that was our first word that we put on there. But I think that could then well develop, and I'd like to think that pretty quickly, if we get to 40, let's say we feel of the 48-40, it's quite a meaningful origination engine, full stop. To your exclusive products point, yes, that's absolutely something we think that could be something that comes out in due course, and who knows what it could become. I think there are benefits we don't even know about yet, or different ways this could go pretty quickly.
And what's the sort of negative feedback that you've received? What are the things that people are saying to you that haven't been necessarily entirely positive, and how have you sort of rebutted that?
I think there's a certain couple who've kind of come on and sort of like tried to work out, are the leads that are being generated, what's the warmth of them? I think some people have expected it just to be, oh, we'll pick up the phone, that's a deal done. It's like, no, you've still got a job to do. We can only do so much in the day. All the negative parts, without sounding kind of, overly positive, there's not been many. Like I say, it's been more the person or the persons that we've not gelled with that's been the negative. There's been a question of, if I can do it better elsewhere, can I? And the answer is it's designed to boost as opposed to hinder. But unless I'm rose tinted glass, I can't really think of. There's nothing that's immediately gone, that was a problem we've had to overcome. I think the one problem we've had with certain people, it's fallen on their restrictions. If they're part of a bigger network, do we have to be onboarded as a that's been
as an introducer, basically.
But again, the frustration with that, the failure with that is, if you become part of their network, well, in theory, then all of their brokers can then use you, and it takes away the exclusivity. So there's been a couple of people who we really, really would have wanted to be part of this, and we've had to say, look, it can't work, and that's been a shame. we're potentially talking about other avenues of, because being part of the club, it's not just about lead generation, it's not just about deal flow. There's other parts to it. So we're talking about, is there another level of club member, almost like you're an international flyer. You come in and use it as and when you need. So, but again, that's probably, well, we've got enough on at the moment.
Yeah. This episode was sponsored by Avonmore Capital. In property finance, you want specialists who understand development, refurbishment, part completed projects, and bridging deals inside out. Avonmore Capital knows construction timelines, cost pressures, and what it takes to structure deals through market changes. Deep expertise, not surface knowledge. Solutions-led thinking based on what actually happens on site. When you're working with Avonmore, you're working with people who get it. Learn more at avonmorecapital.com. Do you sort of see a transition to being something like a distributor or a packager in the future as a potential next step, or is that something that you're sort of shying away from?
I wouldn't write it off. It's not on our high up our agenda. I think that obviously with my background, there potentially is opportunities on the lending side of things at some point. But we don't foresee ourselves being like up against one of the big networks. They do a really good job and they add a whole host of value to their members. That's not what we're trying to be or compete with. I think what it is let's get these next few months. We'll get 30 to 50 brokers up and running. We'll see the sort of volume that could come through.
Yeah.
And it really does. It might sound slightly cheesy, but it does really come down to the people. Like there's enough, and I know this from having done this job for 20 odd years. There's enough really, really good brokers, lenders, people out there that we just think that you put them all together, something good should come out of it as a result. We're all ultimately trying to do the same thing, which is trying to, it's been, and I think where it's maybe has landed really well, it's been a tough couple of years for brokers, for lenders, for the industry generally. It's been difficult. So actually, if there's something where, we can come along and say, well, here's some positivity that you might get something extra from. That's probably where we found it most receptive.
Yeah.
And I think it probably does help that if it had just been a load of lenders going out there, like with my background, I don't think it would have landed as well. And similarly, to be fair, if it had just been a few brokers going out there, I think the fact that it is a combo of people who, lenders and brokers. If you think about Harry, he's sat on both sides of the fence as well. That seems to have resonated quite well. We're fortunate geographically; we all live really close to each other. I think that just happened to be a good thing as well.
Yeah, it seems to have mushroomed. It's only feels like yesterday you left us, and it's mushroomed to something quite big very quickly. So I mean, it's been quite interesting to see.
It's the personalities as well, because we keep laughing. We're quite different. We're very similar in certain ways. We're quite different in others. And we sat back in November when we literally had this thought and was, okay, let's sit on it. Let's think about it. We'll launch it in January. But the problem is, by the time you know it, it's April, it's May. It's another year gone. So we literally we ran about and got all the the fancy bits done pretty quickly. And we probably launched without a full plan. We had a mental plan, but not a full documented plan. And I think off the back of how it's been received, it's focused a lot quicker, and we've had to do it a lot quicker. But the hope is that come March the 1st, or whatever day, not every Saturday, but come the first opportunity in March, the generation will go. It'll be ready. We're looking to host like an inaugural event in sort of mid to late February, off the back of all the calls, who we feel the right people for us.
A physical in-person type of meeting.
Massively, because again, we want people to know each other. Even as simple as we have a WhatsApp group. There's probably 20 or 30 of us on that, sort of brokers, and mainly brokers, then a couple of lenders, and you'd be surprised how many times in a day it's, I've got this in there with that, who fixes it? And within 30 seconds, you've got a lender you've never heard of, or you didn't realise they had that speciality. And I think having that, if you've met somebody and you can feel free to have that conversation, it will it'll get better and better.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of taking the WhatsApp group and just making it more formal, more professional. Yeah. And I suppose if you're going to start to have physical meetings, get-togethers, there'll be, if you're going to have lenders and other service providers all over you like a rash, wanting to be part of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that has been a lot of the calls, as Jordan mentioned about the lenders, but other professional parties have been very quick on the phone, which I applaud them for. I think I'd have done the same in that if I was in their
Yeah.
situation. So yeah, that would be the plan. The day we actually went live was the day before the budget, if I remember rightly, wasn't
all
it?
about
So
timing.
we just beat the budget news.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's an extension, isn't there, where you're going to have access to a huge number of clients, and you know, is there an extension offshoot of Solicitors Club, Valuers Club? You know, I'm sure Colin's been in touch.
No, he's still lost in Skegness. But it can be, in theory, with the right people around it and the right, attitude to making it work. It can be exponential. It can go into anything. It can go into regulated mortgages and go into asset finance. Because the niceness of it is that because it's county by county, if we then tomorrow launched insert type of finance, you get a person in that location as well, and then you've then got internal referrals between the county people.
So you could in theory have 4 or 5 people in each individual geography, right? One is specialised in SME, one does reg stuff. I mean, and then I guess the next extension, if we want to get really exciting, is international, because I guess in theory, because you're not necessarily processing the cases, you probably don't have. It's probably a little bit a bit lighter touch from a regulatory perspective, because all you're doing is, if it's lead referral, then it's generally a little bit less strict, shall we say? So in theory, that opens the door to pan-European. I mean, God, how many blokes and girls have moved to Dubai of late from the broker space? Who wouldn't mind that?
Half my LinkedIn.
Half your LinkedIn,
Well, ironically, we've got a meeting on Wednesday with a kind of an old broker friend of mine who's moved to Israel, and he's like, I'm here now. What can I do? It's like, well, in theory, you put your borrowers, they'll be based in Israel, most likely, or wherever they may be. If they're doing projects in wherever these parts of the world are, again, historically, it would have been a bit of an admin task or a task for us to do all of his work. He's a really active person. All of a sudden, his international clients are building in Shropshire or Devon. Well, they've got a home for it. And I think that the other nice thing as well, one of the conversations we've had with lenders, which again is probably something to look forward to in the future, is in theory, you've also now got 40 odd asset managers on the ground. So if you're a lender in your ivory tower, in London, as we all know, some of them can be, not with any disrespect, they've only got so many things they can do, and you've got a problem with a case up in far-flung region. They could in theory reach out to us and say, well, look, does your local member know someone who can help? Contractor might have gone bust. Do they know a contractor? Borrower wants a bit of help. It adds that, again, it's the boots on the ground nature, which we've always kind of, I don't say, well, we have benefited from it. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of miles, but it was part of the original business plan.
Well, I mean, especially speaking from experience, you have a couple of development loans which have gone a bit sticky. One in Lincolnshire, one in Devon. They're not exactly around the corner, right?
Not at all.
No. It's not like jumping 20 minutes on a train to Isha.
It's a 2-dayer.
So having someone local, and I mean, Lincolnshire's not exactly that bad, but Cumbria or whatever, right? So it is, or north, deepest, darkest West Wales. It's definitely, especially someone who speaks the language, as can be the case in that part of Wales, might be helpful. So I think I think that makes actually that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, look, it sounds very exciting, guys. And I think the more we talk about it, you can see my personal interest and sort of excitement about it. Definitely, I can really see the potential for it. So I'm hats off to you. What's the next step? So you kind of officially launching on 1st of March.
Yeah, you said the date now.
Didn't say a year though.
No, you didn't say a year. That's true. That's true.
No, this March.
Yeah.
Like I say, we've been back to back with the kind of conversation calls to date. We should try and finish those hopefully by the end of next week.
Yeah.
It'll be follow up. It'll be who's of interest to. I'd like to think that most, or 95% of people we've spoken to, it will be of interest to. It seems that way. My bigger hope is that on the day of the launch, what does it mean to you by means of everyone wants to know facts and figures. We're all kind of red-blooded people. And I think at that point, my bigger hope is that if 42 people walk in, 42 people leave with the same desire to be part of it. That'll be the real, cake on the cream.
Yeah.
Ice on the well,
Stick something on the
ice on the cake. Yeah,
So you're not
kids aren't
eating
eating
today.
2 days.
There it is.
That'll be the real benefit and the real kind of proof of concept.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and I guess we'll time will tell. But you've still got. It sounds like you've still got some openings still available. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, people. Yes, whilst we closed on 19th of December, there was a couple of people who came over during the Christmas period, and candidly, if someone wanted to reach out, still, of course, we would still have the conversation without a doubt.
So and what's the website? What's the web address for people to come and have it?
It's just brokerclub.co.uk.
Brokerclub.co.uk. Okay, excellent. And I suppose going back to sort of your sort of bread and butter broking, what's the what are the themes that your clients are more broadly saying or excited about for 2026? What's the mood music?
It feels like we've started probably the last 4 or 5 years with all the optimism. We were laughing the day when we were saying that we keep talking about the good old days of a long time ago now. I think are these just the normal days, and actually they were a different point of time. But it's early in the year. I think quite a lot of optimism and want to transact came towards the back end of last year. We had a really good quarter. I know you mentioned the same. You had an excellent quarter. I think there's a lot more parts of the market which are transacting. Development finance is coming back quite a bit, we see. I think as we broadened into kind of buy-to-let and stuff at the start of last year, it was probably one of our biggest writers of business last year. But it just feels that, it does feel like there's actual physical optimism as opposed to just, hopeful optimism. We're still seeing everything from single units to multi-unit, either PBSA or just housing schemes, and lender appetite is there. Borrower appetite is getting better. We were laughing at the start of probably back end of last year. It kind of felt the last couple of years where all the motivated borrowers got all the bad luck. The down valuations, what title issues, and all the ones who really weren't that motivated, they're going to breathe. They had all the good luck. It didn't really matter. But that's what it felt like to me and to us. Whereas it just seems now that everyone seems to get a bit of a want to transact, and long may that continue.
Yeah. There was, I'd say, certainly, I think our hit rate from application to completion, I think last quarter was something like 80%. Which, you'll remember that. That was
Unheard of. Yeah.
Obviously that's applying a good filter when you're issuing heads of terms, but at the same time, you can't control the title. What nasties are on the title, you can't control the valuer, despite what some people might say. And monitoring surveyors are entities unto themselves. So, and you've also got the issue of clients being clients, right? And I think that they were more likely to sort of abandon the proverb, using your Amazon analogy, they were more likely to abandon the shopping cart. The last kind of, certainly 24. I mean, you'll remember the number of abandoned carts that we,
well, they'd sit there on hold forever, and then you always knew that it was going one way.
It was only going one way. So I feel like that there's a slight difference now in that regard. I think we'll see. I think my expectation is we'll have I think it will be quite similar to last year, like 25. I think 26 will be a lot like 25, but I think there's a bit more optimism, a little bit more motivation. I think that on the seller side, there's probably a bit more realistic expectations now. Yeah. For those that are open to transacting, they sort of know what the score is. I think we'll see a bit more demand from clients, the developer clients particularly, when I think the sales market improves.
Yeah,
and that starts. The noises I'm hearing are better. I had a call with the residential development team at Colliers. It sounds they were actually talking. I mean, shock. Commercial or residential, or like agent, property agent, is optimistic. Great shock, but I didn't feel like it needed to take too many pinches of salt with from the chaps that I was speaking to. That the appetite and the willingness to buy sites, I think particularly conversion sites as well, when it comes to flats, housing or housing sites. There seems to be a good, okay demand for that.
Yeah.
I mean, big blocks of flats, particularly in London,
Yeah.
will be a way off. I think we need to see some. I think we need to see some changes, maybe some government intervention to help that going. But
Well, without going down that point too much, there's other parts of the market which we're seeing more because of the most recent changes. I think in the last probably 8 to 10 weeks, we've had 7 or 8 close down schools. Because that's a part of the market where, especially, we all know
private schools, basically. Yeah,
the kind of boutique, not say boutique, but kind of independent private schools in lovely locations, like one on the shores of Windermere. But because of what's gone on, so again, I think there'll be parts of the market which naturally will. A new part of the market might be generated because of that.
Yeah.
We're doing quite a lot of. I said commercial actually has been really, really positive for us. Like kind of shed development and things like that has been really good because I think people are now chasing facts as opposed to what opinions. If you've got a commercial building producing that figure and that yield, you don't need to be, Einstein to work out what it's genuinely worth. Whereas, obviously I worked on the agency side a long time ago, but been doing this for 12, 13 years. A lot of seller in particular, as you back to your point a second ago, it comes down to what you think it's worth yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas the commercial side of it is a little bit more hard and fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Specialist space seems to have massively moved into that area as well. I mean, people that you would have only considered to be resi for years now quite big, launching big commercial lending offerings as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And even SME finance as well.
Yeah.
So the Albatross guys were pushing that side of things.
Yeah.
What about from an AFIG perspective? Have you got much appetite to do the SME lending, or you sort of leaving that to others, or is that a broker club referral opportunity?
No, I think it'd be in addition to what we do anyway. I think all these parts of it, we've always tried to move and adapt, pardon the pun, with the way the market goes. And again, last year we probably did our highest level of unsecured loans because down valuations, but developer have got good track record. So I think at our core it will always be specialist property debt. Of course, it has to be. It's what we've been built on. But if we can add other forms of leverage to make those things happen. I don't think we'll ever do it as a standalone offering. I might be wrong, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be like that. But I think if it's an addition to help a transaction go, then why wouldn't we look at that?
I mean, the semi-commercial thing has been interesting because, it didn't. I wouldn't say that it was on my radar at least, but I'm not exactly Mr. Current Affairs sometimes. But it certainly wasn't on my radar. And then I think ironically, I think we were looking at a scheme which was kind of semi-commercial, and was more commercial than I suppose we're used to doing. And then we're just looking at it from a credit perspective and doing some research on the number of exit options available, and picked up the phone to a few brokers as well, and we're just like, wow.
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay. Yeah. It is huge, and look, understandably that you kind of get, because you've got the commercial, you've got that yield component of it, which kind of boosts, and then you can have resi ASTs above. And so, whereas if that was just straight ASTs, the yield on that wouldn't be very exciting, and you probably want to do it. And you don't have, but you've got the extra income and extra yield from the commercial, which effectively it unlocks, I suppose, it really unlocks the returns and cover, and you understand why the LTVs are good, because the ICR coverage on that is pretty strong. Yeah.
I think what's really interesting as well, and I was conversation with a friend of mine the other day, is that if we all turn back to again the good old days of 2016, 17, not the good old days when you were around, but even like 16, 17.
What are we going back to?
Yeah, but
2003.
Listen here, Sonny.
Still trying to learn how to tie. But if you go back to those days, even said 16, 17, these huge entities like big high street, they were signing 10-year no break leases on buildings that they didn't need all of it. So if you take a local supermarket, they took the whole building. Well, they're now coming to the end of their leases. They still want to have the shop front, but they don't want the flats above or the space above. So that's been quite an interesting part of it, to see that all of a sudden you can do lease breaks, and then you basically get development space upstairs for almost free. That's been a really I think that'll be a massive part of the market this year, next year.
I think I think we're going to increasingly see that over time. I mean, the point you made about private schools, again, the thing about those private schools is not just the buildings, isn't it? You've also got acres and acres of land.
Yeah.
And wearing my sort of strategic land hat, unfortunately, because the schools are kind of going out of business, it's a bit awkward because you're going to need someone to buy the site and then run it through the planning system, or effectively hold the site and do an option with someone, try and find a way of utilizing those buildings in the meantime. But there's probably, we're literally looking at tens of thousands potentially of homes that could be built on some of those, on some of that land. I mean, a lot of it being green belt. I'm sure a private school, a prep school next to Windermere is probably will be about as protected as it gets. But I guess that all that does is it just creates more opportunities, doesn't it? And Dee said, how have you found I know you still do a little bit of consultancy work for a couple of lenders. How are you finding broking? Are you being on the other side of the fence? What's the do you feel like that lender experience means that you can present and package a case?
I'd like to think so. One thing that has struck me actually, and there are some really, really good lenders out there, which you always know of when you at a lender, you get a good sense of it. But when you come over to the broker side, you get to see it a bit more firsthand. Actually, quite a lot of people still don't get the basics right, which is I found quite striking. So, I will send a deal in, and sometimes it takes 3 days to even get an acknowledgement to say thanks very much. I do think that standard isn't as high as I maybe would have thought. Does it help? Yeah, it does. I think it does. But I think the main area I'd like to think anyway I can help is, when a lender asks X, they actually mean Y. And actually sometimes I know the reason why certain questions are asked about certain things or the way they're presented. And I do, yes, I can definitely add value into seeing what's happening on that side of things. But ultimately, clients just want a good outcome and they want to be dealt with quickly. You do get whenever a broker shouts at a lender because they want something, I've always known deep down the only reason they're doing that is because they're getting shouted at themselves. But you do see that much more firsthand when you sit broker side. It's when brokers ask for something or they might appear a bit short. Trust me, the pressure that they're under from another person, sometimes introducing broker with a client. It's
I guess the introducer is probably I guess in the case when you've got an introducer, it kind of matters even more because that's a regular source of business for you as the broker, right? So you burn that introducer relationship. It's not one deal you're going to lose. It's
multiple.
How many years worth of deals do you potentially lose in that situation?
And also there's an awful lot of work that goes into things that just don't go anywhere, and that's probably a something I've got a newfound respect for the broker community, which is that, yes, listen, when a deal goes well, everyone earns very well, but trust me, for that deal to go well, there's a lot of other stuff that has to happen that might not go anywhere, that lenders don't even ever see.
And now you're on the other side of now you're on the other side of the fence. What's your, and Jordan, you can answer this as well, but what would be the sort of the number one thing you would advise your former lending colleagues, shall we say?
Pick up the phone. Always call. Like I'm sounding really old now, but it's so true. Like, pick up the phone. If something's not going right, tell the broker very quickly that it's not going right, and this is the reason as to why. And always just have that attitude of what you can do to fix it.
Yeah.
I think that it's all the things I'd like to think I'd drilled into sales teams over the years, but a quick no is better than a long drawn out no, and I think that's truer today than ever before. It's quite striking just how many lenders there are. I knew there was a lot, but I see names on, do you want to mention that group earlier on, that I've never come across or heard of, and each will have their own little niche here, there and everywhere. So yeah, it's a much more, I've been saying it for the last 10 years. There's too many lenders. Surely there's going to be some that will fall by the wayside, or there'll be some amalgamation of some, and that's not happening. There's still more seemingly coming.
Well, I'm having recently, and I'm not sure whether it will come out after this episode or before, but having just had Mark Posniak in this year with me, he is of the view that we're going to have that there are there are some conversations currently ongoing between acquirers and acquirees. And he feels like maybe this is the year that it finally the sort of the
it makes sense.
The dam bursts and we start to see that consolidation. Look, from a broker's perspective, you obviously want the maximum number of a maximum amount of options, but at the same time, I guess, you know, before we started rolling, we were talking about wine. But I've always one of the analogies I always make about brokers is that it's like being handed a massive wine list. You know, there's so many options. Sometimes you need a kind of lending sommelier, and that's what a broker is in many ways, in a specialist, to kind of give you the guidance as to where, you know, what the right option is. I mean, what would you say, Jordan? What would be the thing? What's your biggest frustration at the moment on the lender side? Like, what would you like to see change?
I think probably the biggest frustration is that, look, we understand like Dimitri said, we understand when a no's coming. You know, we're not wet behind the ears. We'd just rather know a bit quicker. I think sometimes there's just, if it is a no, I think sometimes it'd be nice to explore the no a bit more. Is there something that we could have done differently? Is there something in the background that we don't know about? Because there's been instances where the old borrower doesn't stack up, and it's, well, you've not asked enough questions. In my opinion, you've not asked enough questions to make that judgment. You know, Google never tells you good news, let's be honest, but it tells bad news. But you know, if you actually sit down with the borrower, you know, no borrower would walk away from a conversation to prove why they're the right person for a deal, and that's not a welcome thing anymore. I know that's probably the early comment about collaboration. I don't think there's any point protecting your borrower from the eventual lender, because they'll talk, or you like to think, more than we will in the end. So again, I do think there's parts of that, and I think, you know, being a broker, there's just an element of skillful will. You have to make things happen sometimes. You have to, you know, if you do get a no on a Friday, you might not make the call on a Friday. You may wait till the Monday, Tuesday, and in that time you may have found another option. And you have to always think on your feet. And I think just sometimes, you know, I think lenders could be a little bit more fluid. Look, there's requirements, there's restrictions, there's policies, there's appetite. But on the face of it, in theory, if you're a decent broker, you should know what that lender's wants are. If there's something that's just not being said, I think, just be frank with us. You know, we're not beasts. We're not going to cry to the press tomorrow that someone said they were doing this and they're not. You know, we're not built that way. Well, I don't think I've never met one today that is. And I think, you know, just a bit more. I don't want to use the word transparency, because that makes it sound like it's untoward, and it's not. It's just being a bit more upfront with us.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Well, guys, unfortunately we've run out of time for today, but that's been a very enjoyable conversation. It's great to see you both.
Likewise.
And would have loved for another hour of that if we had time. So very grateful for you both coming in today. Very quickly, as we have an Arsenal and a Man City fan.
I was about to say, I'll get onto football. That's the problem.
So
That's
in a word, who's winning the league this year?
Yeah, it's
Dimitri Zaprzala.
It's been good fun working with a City fan when the final time that, you know, their era of dominance is over. I think we win all four. I genuinely do. I can't see how we don't win everything this year.
Okay, and that's now on record, by the way.
You stick it on record.
And that's going to get clipped. It's going to get clipped up. Yeah. Jordan, I know you've got your feet more firmly on the ground than T said.
It's a little bit. I'm going to make a shameful plug. It's a bit like Broker Club. He didn't mention a year.
Right, on that bombshell. Well, thanks to Dimitri and Jordan for popping in. I've been Michael Dean, your host. You can find me on the internet at property_funder. Many thanks to Matt for his help on the technical side today. Producer Davina and Versta, Avonmore Capital, have been our sponsor, and we thank them very much. And we'll talk to you again on the next one. Thanks, and bye-bye.